The story must begin from here. A blonde-haired boy with a startled expression looks at his phone screen while playing Honor of Kings. After this match, he might be able to rank up to king. Suddenly, his eyes dimmed as he saw the darkened phone screen displaying a countdown timer. His entire team was wiped out, and the crushing defeat slapped him right in the face. He was shocked to the core, his head jerked back, and he spat out blood. The boy lay sprawled on the floor, his soul seemingly departing his body as the phone screen displayed his rank dropping by 1 star. Suddenly, the phone screen flashed with blue lights accompanied by a notification that your life as a king begins. As a king, one must certainly have a noble and prestigious background, especially being born into a prestigious orthodox clan of the Ming Tong sect because of the people's hatred. Look, see how happy he is. A father with exceptional abilities, a stepmother who is extremely gentle. Look at him, he's so talented and diligent in his studies, he doesn't make his parents worry. Of course, Builang Shuyan is not the main character in this novel who travels to the world of cultivation. He set for himself a grand goal to become the righteous cowherd in honor of kings. While he was daydreaming, a basin of foot-washing water splashed straight onto his face, snapping him back to reality. Boy Lang was drenched from head to toe. He looked up at a maid standing before him. Recently, the disciples of the Shengzong sect had been temporarily staying in the manor and were particularly fond of the pastries made by Wu's Qi. They were troubling the young master, asking him to go to the mountain tomorrow to buy some, and the madam would give a generous reward at that time. If you can't find the madam, there will still be a big reward. This woman is the maid of the stepmother. After she left, Bui Lang brought his hand to his mouth and chuckled. Today was another successful day as a servant, but this life of being a weak and submissive lackey is about to end soon. He went into the room and locked the door behind him. At 18 years old, collecting 300 low-grade spirit stones is truly a shame for a transmigrator. Builang's eyes turned icy cold as he clasped his hands together, forming a seal. After 18 years, his life finally began to integrate with the system. Instantly, numerous screens around Builang displayed species human, male, 18 years old, status son of the Bui family in Loktuyan City, cultivation level Qi. Refining stage 2, system status not activated. On the screen, a line of text appeared along with 2 options. Waiting for 18 years. Is it also a bit foolish to have or not? He reached out and selected the yes option on the screen. He had his eyes bulging out and his hair standing on end, screaming and crying when he saw the system screen with the interface of the Ming Dynasty era. Why is it like the system window frame from the 90s? Where's the cool system like everyone else's? He brought his hand to his chin, his face twisted as if he had constipation, sweating profusely. This rustic point looks so outdated, might as well just give up. Having it is better than nothing. Builang looked at the system screen and saw that this was indeed the cultivation method he could practice. Deciphering bone technique is a traditional method of the Bui family, divided into 3 stages: iron bone, essence bone, and jade bone. This technique makes swords and spears unable to penetrate, with punches as strong as steel and as fast as a cutting knife, similar to being clawed by a tiger. It is a demonic art, and the cultivation process contains a demonic style. Those who lack determination will have to endure pain that reduces them to dust and ultimately die. He felt disheartened and pointed to the screen to check which cultivation time it was. Builang's eyes widened in shock, his gaze askew. What's wrong with the cultivation time? After suffering for so many years, he still has to cultivate for another 10 years. He stared at the system panel and cracked a smile. This AI's timing is brilliant. Just looking at it and you know it's top-notch. He placed his hand on the system panel with an extremely determined gaze. The humiliation of the past 18 years will finally end. It's time to kill all those who oppose me. I will become the future king, and those step-parents who bullied me will be dealt with. I'll even splash the foot-washing basin in their face, and now the system begins my cultivation. The system panel displays a selection key to upgrade the current skill and start cultivation. Warning: during the cultivation process, the host will lose control of their body. Don't panic. In the blink of an eye, Builang's entire body was enveloped by a blue-green light. The young man was surprised to see his hands being controlled by the system, starting to move on their own. Is this it? My body is moving like this? The cultivation method he is practicing now is the bone deciding technique. As he sits in meditation, an image appears in his mind of a young woman using a whip to lash his mother's naked body. Although he can't control his body and feels a bit worried, this feeling is also strangely comfortable, and he's actually becoming addicted to it. The young man's eyes sparkled like stars as he stared at the palm of his hand. The system was truly very suitable for him to become a king, and it was indeed very considerate. He was surprised to see the system panel displaying a cultivation check, missing the essence bone elixir. Please wait a moment. Please wait a moment. Boy Lang's face fell, his eyes gleaming with a hint of provocation. Where are the few Toai Dan pills that the elder masters of the Bui family don't have? Even the direct disciples who have never been seen before. Where are they going to find these essence bone elixirs? Suddenly, the young man was overjoyed when he saw the screen displaying the analysis completion, and the system would give him 10 free essence bone elixirs. Suddenly, his entire body was enveloped by a blue light, leaving him bewildered. He was controlled by the system to kick out with a flying kick, blasting the door open. After that, he ran past two girls, causing their skirts to fly up, and they shouted, "You despicable thing, stop!" After running for his life for a while, he stopped in front of a mansion. Damn system, don't harm me. I've been treated like a beast of burden for 18 years, and I've never run like a madman in this kind of situation before. The young man's eyes bulged out when he saw the sign on the gate. Why did I come here? Builang's eyes welled up with tears as he thought, isn't this the residence of that ruthless killer who doesn't bat an eye? Why did you bring me here, you damn system? I'd rather die than be here with you. He was drenched in sweat, his face as pale as a frog's belly, terrified. They would extract the soul and eat human flesh, drink blood to become stronger, using any means necessary, just like the Trung Min Tong, which was the most fearsome world anyone had ever known, and no one dared to provoke it. Builang stood in front of the gate, muttering to himself, System, let's just turn back now, shall we? Can't we just not go inside? He was controlled by the system to kick the gate strongly, opening it wide, and exclaimed, Green bean! Builang's face was drained of blood as he wailed, We've already kicked open the door of the great demon's lair. Let's just consider that we've arrived, and now let's get out of here quickly. He was controlled by the system to run quickly inside. After that, he ran like Sonic towards a large house, shouting nonstop, I'm giving you an order. Stop right now. Do you hear me? Are you trying to kill me, you damn system? Builang stopped, his hands on his knees, panting heavily, and finally came to a halt. He lifted his neck and puffed out his chest, looking at the house in front of him, wondering what this place was. Ha! It turns out that the owner of Bitch Ngo's room is also the room of Trin Kin's son. Earlier I even came here to clean up. He raised his fist in front of his face, tears streaming down his cheeks, and said, Stop it. System, I don't want to die. You want to push me into this, but now you even want me to break down the door of Trin Kin's son's room. As soon as he finished speaking, the system controlled his fist to break down the door. Builang had eyes like a dead fish, with tears streaming down his face like a waterfall. He was a ruthless demon. Even his own father wouldn't be spared. System, tell me, how do you want me to die? He stumbled step by step into the room, fortunately. That demon wasn't here. He looked around, sweating profusely. No wonder it was the lair of a great demon. The room was dark and eerie, and behind Builang was a screen with images of mysterious and enchanting female spirits gazing at him. Builang walked step by step towards a cabinet, muttering to himself, System, tell me, do you really hate me somewhere? Don't you want to switch to another host? He pulled out a drawer, and inside there was a bottle of elixir. System, what do you want to do? He took the bottle and poured the elixir pills into his hand. His forehead turned gray as he stared wide-eyed at the screen, which displayed that he had been gifted 10 core elixirs. The system's prompt urged him to continue cultivating. He grabbed his arm, which was being controlled by the system, and resisted with all his might. Is this what you call a gift? I won't eat it. I won't eat it. After a while of resisting, it was futile. He was forced by the system to stuff all the elixirs into his mouth. Builang stood frozen, his eyes white and streaming with tears. This is Trin Kinson's stuff. Hurry up and vomit it out for me, you wretched thing. He walked step by step towards a round cushion. After that, he sat down to continue cultivating. Hui Lang's eyes were lifeless, and he had a foolish smile. This was like stealing from someone else's room in broad daylight, and he didn't even bother to close the door. He was exhausted and gave up. System, do whatever you want. This time it was indeed an item I had never encountered before. Golden iron civilization muscles move, removing toxins and contracting muscles. After a while of cultivating, Hui Lang broke through to the third level of Luyan Qi. He stood up and struck a cool pose. He clenched his fist tightly, his eyes darkened, and sweat poured down his face. In less than 3 hours of practicing the third level of cultivating Qi, he broke through to the fourth stage. The foundation was complete. Indeed, he was the king. At this moment, the system panel displayed that the cultivation was complete, marking the end of the body transformation phase for the host. If you're satisfied, please rate with 5 stars. Seeing this, Hui Lang smiled with contempt, raising his benevolent finger. Finally, it's done. Next year, you'll also be worthy, huh? Suddenly, he widened his eyes in horror as he heard someone's laughter echoing. He furrowed his brow, gritted his teeth, and turned his face to look behind him. The woman's laughter, how could there be someone in the room? He turned around, but all he saw was the wall with no one there. So, where did the laughter come from? Suddenly, Hui Lang's eyes widened, and he broke out in a cold sweat. At the same time, a remnant soul of the young lady was forming a sinister smile. From within the screen, extremely eerie arms protruded, targeting Hui Lang and rushing towards him. He crossed his arms in front of him and jumped back, avoiding the eerie arms rushing towards him. What kind of evil creature is this? The Trung Min Tong is indeed very eerie. He rushed forward, jumped over a wall, and ran out, his face covered in sweat. Luckily, he jumped over this wall and managed to escape without being chased. Bui Fu couldn't stay long and was forced to leave immediately. I stole the essence bone elixirs of Zhengjing Shan, and later I'll surely meet my end. Suddenly a man appeared out of nowhere, causing him to jump in fright. Seventh Prince, what are you doing squatting in this mountain villa? Seventh Prince, what are you doing squatting in this mountain villa? Hui Lang's face looked innocent, but sweat kept pouring down. He pointed in one direction, saying, "We are going to find Wu Se-ja to prepare. I don't know why little Ka is looking for me." The servant gritted his teeth and replied, "Master, please have all the young masters follow Miss to the main hall." He smiled slyly, unsure why the master had summoned us to the main hall. "Stop asking so many questions, or else if we keep the master and Trin Kinsun waiting, we'll get punished." Hui Lang asked curiously, "Has Master Trin returned? Why not go back to Bich Ngo to rest? Why not, little guy? Stop talking or else the master will get angry." Upon hearing this, he turned around and ran away in a cloud of dust. The servant looked after him, gritting his teeth in anger and cursing, "This stupid guy!" He ran down the road, worrying silently to himself that Trin Kin Sun had returned and gone to the main hall, so he probably didn't know about the theft of his essence bone elixirs. It's just a strict rule in Bui Fu that when the master summons you, there's no reason to hesitate. If you annoy him, you'll get punched. Just thinking about this makes the young boy scream in tears. After a while, Hui Lang also stood in front of the main hall of Bui Fu. At this point, he could only go inside. At this moment, inside the main hall, there were many people. There was a young man with red hair sitting above, who was Trin Kin Sun, an inner disciple of the Trung Min Tong. Beside him sat Bui Quyen, the master of the Bui family, and standing next to him was Bui Hong Nien, the son of Bui Huyen. Hui Lang stood behind the crowd, fearful. He glanced around and saw that no one mentioned the incident at Bich Ngo Institute, so it seemed that Trin Kin Sun still didn't know. Bui Huyen glanced over at Kin Sun and said, "Master Trin, everyone is here. We await your instructions." He gazed with a cold, piercing stare at the palm of his hand, reflecting on the Ngo Din Hai who had fled to Nguyen Lao Mountain today. Whoever goes up the mountain to find and discover his whereabouts will be immediately rewarded with 50 essence bone elixirs. Hearing this, Bui Lan's eyes widened in shock, her mouth agape in surprise. 50 elixirs. No wonder the Trung Min Tong was so generous. Bui Huyen and Hong Nien stood frozen, exchanging nervous glances with each other. Kin Sun's gaze turned cold and dark, his eyes flashing with murderous intent as he glanced back, saying, "What are you waiting for? Go find him." Seeing this, Bui Huyen was alarmed. He stood up abruptly, clasped his hands together, and bowed his head, saying, Master Trin, I have heard that Ngo Din's cultivation has reached the 7th level of qi refinement, and with our family's disciples being weak and lacking in strength, it will be difficult for us to accomplish this. After hearing this, Builang stood below, furrowing his brow and curling his lips. For Trin Kinsun, reaching the 7th level of qi refinement was like a trivial matter, but for the boy family, it was not so simple. The cultivation realm in this world is divided into the qi refining, foundation building, and core formation stages. However, regarding the realms beyond core formation, there is no record in the Bui family. It's true that they are useless because Loktuyan City is vast, and Bui Huyan, the person with the highest cultivation level, is only at the 7th level of qi refining. However, the great demon Trin Kinsun has already reached the middle stage of the foundation building. This also means that in the entire Loktuyan City, there is no rival to him. Everyone else is merely insignificant. He raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his chin, his eyes fixed intently. So even though Ngo Din Hai had reached the 7th level of qi refining, the Bui family could only risk everything. Kinsun's eyebrows furrowed, his eyes like bullets, his expression emotionless. Ngo Din Hai is now severely injured, no different from a novice qi practitioner at the beginning. It will be very easy to subdue him. Moreover, I told you to find him. There's no need for you to capture him. Bui Huyan clasped his hands together, closed his eyes, and replied in this manner, which was acceptable. He snapped his fingers once. Using spiritual energy to create an image of a man standing right next to him, this is Ngo Din Hai. If his whereabouts are found, immediately send a signal, and at that time, the master will personally chase and capture him. The group of people standing below clasped their hands in reverence and chanted in unison, The order of the respected master, disciples obey. Builang raised his hand to his face, curling up the corner of his mouth in a triumphant smile. The time has come. He, along with the group, quickly moved outside. Once they leave the city, they will seize the opportunity to escape. Bui Huyan smiled wryly, sweat continuously dripping down, wondering if Trin Master would like to enjoy some tea. Kinsun, with a cold expression, clasped his hands behind his back and walked forward step by step. The master was too busy to drink his tea, so he had to go to the Pu Van Institute. Scene shift to Pu Van Institute. Kinsun stood in front of the door of the house, clasped his hands together and said, Sister, Trin Kinsun requests an audience. Suddenly, a severe headache struck him, causing his face to turn pale, his complexion to change, and his sweat to pour down profusely. Through the crack in the door, the silhouette of a nun appeared, sitting inside and inquiring curiously, Have you found the person yet? Hearing this, he became terrified and sweated profusely. He reported to the nun that Ngo Din He had been discovered hiding on Mount Nguyen Lao, and that he had relied on the Bui family. This nun immediately interrupted Kinsun's words, her eyes darkening as she shouted loudly, Good for nothing! She conjured up extremely eerie and ghostly spirits from within the room, which flew out. I give you 3 days to find the 6 desires scripture. If you fail, the master will extract your soul and spirit. Kinsun was terrified, kneeling down and bowing his head to the ground, responding loudly with a clear voice. Scene shift to the foot of Nguyen Lao Mountain. Builang furrowed his brow, gazing at the mountain, unable to approach Mount Nguyen Lao anymore. Descending from here would take only half a watch. He raised his hand to his mouth and shouted loudly, The 2 monks have searched this side, but there are no signs of the 2 men. These 2 men looked at Builang with contemptuous eyes. The young man covered his mouth with his hand, chuckling and saying, Ha! Time to make a run for it. Run to the nearest city first, dress up in disguise carefully, and then find a group of wandering warriors to blend in with. Ha ha! By then you can go wherever you want. With the vast sky and ocean, who can control you? He sprinted with all his might, racing towards a fortress that was appearing before his eyes. Come on, the lunar prophet is very close now. Suddenly he stopped, his legs trembling uncontrollably. His eyes widened in shock, his face pale without a single drop of blood, sweat pouring down profusely. After that, his knees buckled, and he knelt down on the ground. How could he be so tired after running for such a short time? His whole body felt drained of energy. Why did he suddenly feel so cold? He furrowed his brow, his eyes wide with alarm. Could it be that screen? At this moment, around Builang, eerie and mysterious eyes appeared, staring intently at him. Behind him now was the screen, and from it emerged a long, wailing ghost, its face twisted into a sinister smile. Ha 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 ha, it's here. He clenched his jaws tightly, his body slowly collapsing to the ground. But why didn't the screen in Tring Kin-sun's training room attack him? Could it be that the system is manipulating my body? After resisting for a while, Builang finally collapsed to the ground, his eyes gradually losing consciousness. Tio Tao said, "The system wants to cultivate the core." Immediately, the system notified that the cultivation potential was activated and the system was ready to serve. His eyes flashed with a green light. After that, Builang's body was controlled by the system. His teeth clenched tightly as he stood up with his hands gripping firmly. He suddenly released a powerful spiritual energy, opening his mouth to let out a loud roar. Builang, with his agile body, quickly reached out with one hand to grab the remaining demon woman, holding her tightly and pulling her back. His eyes were filled with extreme anger as he shouted loudly, "Get out of here!" After that, he threw a powerful punch to straighten out the demon woman's jaw and face. Builang smirked with satisfaction, striking a pose. He put his hands into the system, and indeed, there was a system here. Those women wouldn't dare to attack him. Suddenly, Builang's forehead turned pale, and he sweated profusely. His eyes, filled with a sense of alarm, glanced back to see the system's notification. The host's blood and energy are unstable. Continuing to cultivate the core will cause blood damage. Help the host adjust the blood and energy, and the system will give away a free blood and energy pill. Upon seeing the system's notification, Builang's eyes bulged out, his mouth half opened. "What do you want me to die from this time?" While he was still unable to process what was happening, the system took control of him and made him run off somewhere. He was controlled by the system, his buttocks moving quickly as he ran towards the mountain of the Nguyen Lao, shouting loudly as he ran, "Don't, don't!" The scene shifted to inside the cave of the Nguyen Lao's mountain, where a man was sitting on a rock. His shadow cast on the ground was that of a demon with ferocious eyes. He reached into his robe, rummaging around to find something. He was none other than Ngo Din Hai, an old man with disheveled hair, holding a bottle of medicine in his hand, coughing violently. It was unexpected that Ngo Din He had fallen to such a state. Just as the old man was about to bring the bottle of medicine to his mouth, Builang rushed in from outside. As soon as he saw Ngo Din Hai, he clenched his teeth and sweated profusely in fear. Perhaps he was the traitor that Trung Min Tong was searching for. Could it be that they didn't want to steal his blood and energy pill, but rather something else? Ngo Din Hai opened his mouth wide, waiting for the medicine pills to fall out of the bottle. Builang stomped his foot strongly on the ground and flew up into the air. At the same time, the system notified that it had checked the blood and energy pill and was giving it to him for free. The young man jumped over Ngo Din He's head, quickly snatching the bottle of medicine from the old man's hand, leaving him stunned and bewildered. Builang opened his mouth wide, pouring the medicine pills from the bottle into his mouth and swallowing them down. The system notified that the process of creating the blood and energy pill was complete. The system continued to cultivate for you. The young man sat down right in front of Ngo Din Hai and began to cultivate, causing him to widen his eyes in shock. Builang's mind was terrified, tears streaming down his face. How could they make him cultivate right in front of him? Wasn't this trying to drive him to death? The old man was struck by the scene before him, a painful blow that filled him with intense anger, his face turning green with rage. "You stole my medicine, and yet you dare to cultivate right in front of me." His eyes darkened, but the glint in them was brighter than his entire face. Ngo Din Hai's eyes blazed red with rage as he let out a furious shout, "I must kill you!" The old man reached out to grab the bottle of medicine that was rolling on the ground, shouting loudly at the young man, "You little brat!" He tilted the bottle of medicine, pouring the blood and energy pills into Builang's mouth, who was still sitting beside him, cultivating. In his mind, he thought, "Damn this system, I don't want to cultivate anymore." Ah! The old man held the bottle of medicine in his hand, raising it high and revealing a sinister smile. "You think you can steal from me just by relying on yourself," Builang, who was being controlled by the system, couldn't move and screamed in his mind, "Great Elder, spare my life." With a loud crash, The old man slammed the bottle of medicine into Boilang's head, shattering it. A large pimple appeared on his head, and 2 streams of tears flowed down his face as he saw the system notify that the cultivation was complete. If you like, please rate with 5 stars. Seeing this, the young man cursed loudly. I'll give you a 0 rating, you piece of trash. Instantly, he let out a terrified shriek like a swallow when he saw Ngo Din Hai standing before him with a sinister expression, flaunting his sharp nails. It's fate that we met. I, Ngo, will send you on your way with a farewell song. Seeing the old man's hand radiating magical energy only made the young man even more terrified. Fellow Taoist, listen to my explanation. The system has truly doomed you to death. In the blink of an eye, Ngo Din Hai launched the jade poison technique, using his sharp nails to stab at Lam Chiu. However, he was blocked by Lam Chiu, who used his arm to defend himself. Blood splattered everywhere as he suddenly unleashed his magical power, sending Bui Lang flying far away, causing his blood to flow incessantly. With a loud crash, he fell from the air to the ground, surrounded by a thick cloud of smoke. The old man stared straight ahead, curling his lips into a scornful smile, saying, "You're just a mere chi cultivator of the 3rd tier." As the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, Bui Lang was revealed to still be alive, his mouth still dripping with blood. Seeing this, the old man widened his eyes in horror. How is he not dead yet? Bui Lang gritted his teeth in anger and frustration as 4 holes appeared on his arm, continuously bleeding. This guy is too strong. Luckily, I'm still alive. If this continues, it won't be good. I need to think of a way to stop him. Ngo Din Hai immediately used his demonic eyes to stare intensely at Bui Lang. What struck the old man's eyes was Bui Lang's entire skeletal system, which was as hard and sturdy as steel. Seeing this, the old man was shocked. His face turned green like a frog's belly, his eyes wide with terror, and his mouth agape as he exclaimed, "This is a supreme bone frame." Bui Lang raised his hand to wipe the blood from his mouth, his eyebrows furrowed. The system. You must give me a 5-star rating. Suddenly he seemed to discover something. Now standing before him was Ngo Din Hai, with a face like a demon, possessing a supreme bone frame. How did you cultivate this? He opened his eyes wide, gritted his teeth, and sweated profusely, terrified that he had been discovered. He must be planning to extract my bone marrow for cultivation, right? The old man crossed his arms in front of his chest, glaring at Bui Lang, who was raising a finger to his mouth with a sly smile. Fellow Taoist, I was wrong about the blood circulation technique. I apologize. As for the supreme bone frame you mentioned, I don't know what you're talking about. The old man furrowed his brow, his eyes cold and sharp as he glanced down and said, Stop pretending. Earlier, your cultivation was clearly the bone-severing bone frame, which can only be achieved through the bone-severing technique of the Zhongming Sect. I'm not mistaken. Boilang clenched his fist tightly, his eyebrows furrowed, and sweat poured down his face. The person from the dark sect was indeed not someone to be trifled with, but he still managed to drag his leg a bit. Once he recovered somewhat, he would look for an opportunity to escape. He was cornered, sitting hunched and trembling like a dried shrimp, when he saw the terrifying appearance of Din Hai. You chased me all the way into the mountains. Surely you don't want to catch Ngo Mo, do you? Hearing this, the young man suddenly jerked up and waved his hands repeatedly. Don't misunderstand, fellow Taoist. Although I was ordered to pursue you, I have no intention of revealing your whereabouts. I only hope that you can give me a chance to live. The old man's face turned icy cold as he glanced down. Do you think I would believe you? Boilang's eyes welled up with tears as he let out a deep sigh. From a young age, my innate talent was poor, and I was oppressed by my stepmother, so my path to cultivation was extremely arduous. After that, Trin Kin Sun at Bui Fu, I was momentarily dazed, and my mind was vacant, allowing him to secretly steal 10 bone circulation pills. Hearing this, Ngo Din He's eyes darkened, and sweat poured down like a waterfall. He froze for 2 seconds. After that, the old man raised his hand, his eyes bulging with veins of blood visible. How dare you steal from Trin Kin Sun? Have young people today become so brazen? Boilang raised his hand to scratch his head, looking embarrassed with his cheeks flushed red. At a young and arrogant age, who doesn't make mistakes, I voluntarily jumped into this mess just because I wanted to escape quickly. It's quite a coincidence, isn't it? Trin Kin-sun wanted to kill you, but until now he still hasn't discovered that you stole his belongings. Meanwhile, the wound on your arm has healed while he was talking. The young man put on the face of a maiden with sparkling eyes and grasped Din-hee's hand, causing him to get goosebumps. Therefore, only if you, fellow Taoist, let me go, will I have time to escape. I'm helping you, fellow Taoist. The old man gritted his teeth in anger and slapped Bui Lang's hand. If you were truly helping me, why did you still steal my blood circulation pills? This person is cunning and deceitful, impossible to trust easily. He raised his hand, closed his eyes, and let out a deep sigh. Fellow Taoist, I am also helpless. Do you know if Trin Kin-sun has hung a screen in his room? Hearing this, Din-hee's eyes widened in shock and his face was covered in sweat. DM Kot La Sat Du, how did you see it? And yet you're still alive. The young man, with a foolish expression, raised his hand to his mouth to bite his fingernails. Why is that painting so frightening? Bui Lang raised a finger and said, So, while I was running away, I was ambushed by DM Kot La Sat Du and nearly lost my life. In that desperate situation, I had no choice but to steal the blood circulation pills from fellow Taoist to ensure my survival. Ding Hai glared at Bui Lang and said, With your cultivation level, you can't possibly withstand the devouring of DM Kot La Sat Du. His eyes widened with a glimmer of trust as he added, That's right. Just like that. Trust me. The old man made a terrifying face and smiled wickedly. If that's the case, how can we make a deal? Seeing this, Bui Lang's eyes widened in fear, and his face was covered in sweat. The young man, with a puzzled expression, raised his hand to scratch his head and asked curiously, What deal are you talking about? In his mind, he was thinking that his body still needed some time to recover, and that he had to endure the old man's ramblings for a little while longer. The old man reached into his robes, rummaging for something. After that, he presented a scroll of jade simplification forward. If you help Ngo Mo escape from the mountain, Elder Ngo Mo will share this cultivation method with you. How about it? Seeing this, Bui Lang looked disappointed and raised his hand to pick his nose. That's it. Looks ordinary anyway. Hearing this, Din-hee's eyes darkened, and he stood motionless. The old man clenched his fist, his eyes fixed intently, his face bulging with green veins, as he shouted directly at Bui Lang, You understand nothing about this cultivation method, which is exactly what Trin Kin-sun and his group have been craving but couldn't obtain. They, in order to obtain this cultivation method, did not hesitate to use any means and massacred our sect. The old man wailed and clutched the jade simplification to his chest. If I hadn't been vigilant and noticed something was wrong, I would have been killed by Trin Kin-sun long ago. The young man raised a finger to his face, sweating profusely and forcing a smile. If Trin Kin-sun wants it, just give it to him, isn't that right? That way, you won't be pursued anymore. Suddenly he widened his eyes in surprise as he saw the system notification. Discovered a mysterious cultivation method outside the system, currently collecting it. On the system screen, a file was being downloaded. Bui Lang stood there, looking away, and thought, There's still a chance for good fortune. Well, let's just keep stalling him and quickly take advantage of the time to collect it. Ding Hai went mad, gritting his teeth and grasping the collar of the young man. This appearance of not believing was quite fitting. The young man raised his hand to scratch his head, smiling slyly. Elder, you trust in such a face of credibility? He grasped Din Hai's hand and pulled it towards the jade simplification. The old man said, It's so powerful, can I take a look and study it for a bit? The old man sweated profusely as he saw Bui Lang frolicking and showing off in front of him. The attitude of this person changed suddenly. Could it be that he has become greedy now? Looking at the download bar on the system panel being filled, he smiled triumphantly. Almost there, almost there. The old man's eyes blazed with anger, his mad smile disappearing as he slapped Bui Lang's head hard, causing his eyes to bulge out and his tongue to stick out in a long, twisted manner. What are you doing like that? The old man smiled slyly, opening and closing his eyes. The jade simplification will be yours sooner or later. Help Ngo Mo escape from here first. The young man raised his hand to scratch his head, forcing a smile and asking curiously, "How can we not help? Which direction should we run in later?" Din Hai immediately replied, "Let's head west for now and we'll discuss the rest later." As he spoke, the old man put the jade simplification back into his robes. Seeing this, Bui Lang sweated profusely and clenched his teeth, saying, "Don't put it away so quickly, though." The system notified that the collection progress had reached 100% and was complete. Please have the host sign the name. He glanced up at a file displayed on the system panel, hastily selecting one. Well, let's just call it the nameless cultivation method. Ding Hai reached out towards Bui Lang and said, "Little one, quickly escort the old man outside." The young man heard this and thought to himself, "Escort the head of the Xiao family. He's already recovered quite well, who cares about him anymore?" He widened his eyes and stared forward, shouting loudly, Trin Kin's son, why have you come here?" Hearing this, Din Hai clenched his teeth in terror and glanced backward. The old man was horrified and turned his head to look back, stuttering, "Third brother Trin, sir, listen to me." Bui Lang seized the opportunity to grab his shoes and run away, saying, "The young master is escaping." When the old man turned around, he saw that Bui Lang had vanished. The old man's eyes darkened, his face bulging with green veins in rage. He channeled his magical power into his palm, saying, "You damned brat dare to play with me." After that, he launched a palm strike that flew forward, shouting loudly, "Go die!" Bui Lang widened his eyes and opened his mouth, running forward to avoid the old man's palm strike. Brother Ngo went to find someone to save him, but why did he repay kindness with enmity like this? Din Hai's face scrunched up, his eyebrows furrowed, his eyes fixed intently as he gritted his teeth, clenching them tightly together. He exerted himself to run forward, turning his head to look back. This guy, even if he's injured, is still a chi-refining 7th-layer cultivator. Running like this isn't the right way. Suddenly, he stopped and widened his eyes in shock, staring intently forward with a terrified expression. In front of Kukao now is a cliff blocking the way, no path to run. Is this a dead end? At this moment, Din Hai had also caught up, sweating profusely, his eyes darkening as he smiled triumphantly. "Why stop running now?" he said, his eyes darting backward like bullets. "It's already like this. Just do that." The old man's eyes blazed red, his mouth wide open as he channeled his magical power into his 5 sharp claws, using the 5 poison fingers technique. Bui Lang widened his eyes and stared at the incoming streams of magical power. He immediately used his haki armor technique, but mistakenly focused his energy on one of his arms. A loud boom shook the air, causing a massive explosion right in front of the old man, sending smoke billowing everywhere, obscuring everything. As the dust gradually cleared, revealing Bui Lang still standing firm, his eyes darkening, Ngo Din Hai thought, "Why didn't I dare to resist?" Seeing this, the old man was extremely shocked, his face covered in sweat, yet he wondered how he was still alive. The old man aimed at Bui Lang and swung a powerful fist towards him, but the young man with his agile body dodged the punch and quickly grasped the old man's clothing with both hands. He sneered with a triumphant smile. "You even punched directly? It seems you're so weak that you couldn't even use the 5 poison fingers technique." Hearing this, the old man's face turned pale, his eyes filled with terror. Sweat poured down his face like a torrent, as if mother and child were racing each other to flow down. Immediately, Bui Lang pulled the old man up into the air with great force, causing him to be terrified. After that, he slammed Man Jin Hai to the ground, causing the old man to cough up a large amount of blood and let out a pitiful scream. He lay on the ground, coughing and gasping for breath, blood flowing continuously from his mouth and nose. "Even if you kill Ngo today, you won't be able to escape," he said. Hearing this, Bui Lang was surprised and puzzled, asking, "What do you mean could it be that he still has an ally?" The old man's face was covered in sweat, and he smiled with a hint of hidden meaning. "Trin Kin's son will not forgive you. No one can survive the Diemkot Lasat," he said. He lifted his head in fury and shouted directly at Bui Lang, "The heaven and the corner of the sea will all follow you." He reached back and drew the sword from behind his back. After that, his forehead darkened, his eyes blazed with anger, and he thrust his sword strongly into the old man's body, causing him to meet his end. Bui Lang fell silent, gazing thoughtfully at the sword in his hand with a pensive expression. He swung his sword to the side and raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his face. I've already killed Ngo Din Hai and Trin Kin Sun, so I'm not afraid of committing more offenses. If I die, my family will strip you bare anyway. After a brief moment of distraction, his hands were now holding a jade slip and the jade bead that the old man had used to attack him earlier, which might have been his murder weapon. As for the jade slip, Bui Lang picked it up and left, leaving Ngo Din He's body on the ground. He took his family and wandered the heaven and the corner of the sea. He had only run a few steps when he stopped, his legs trembling, with eyes wide open and beads of sweat, as if fearing something. Bui Lang clenched his teeth tightly, recalling the words Ngo Din Hai had just spoken. Could it be that what he said wasn't true? How could it be that even if he ran away now, he would still have his spiritual energy drained and die? The young man, with a worried expression and beads of sweat, looked at the system panel displaying a request for a 5-star evaluation. System, do you have any way to resolve this? Seeing this, he immediately gave a 1-star rating, accompanied by an angry tone. This trash system doesn't even know how to be ashamed, forcing me to rate it while my family is being harmed by you, and now we're going to die because of you. Bui Lang stood in contemplation, staring intently at the jade slip he was holding in his hand. He furrowed his brow, his eyes becoming serious. It seemed like there was no other way. If Trin Kin Sun wanted it that way, then he would use it to negotiate with him. The scene shifts to the main Buifu Road. Inside the main hall of Bui Lang Kui, he performed a ritual on the ground in front of Bui Huyan, who was seated above. With a panicked tone, he exclaimed, "What, you said you found Ngo Din Hai? Why didn't you send a signal?" He clasped his hands together and said, "Perhaps it's because of fear of the grass snake. Anyway, this matter is very important. I want to report it to Trin Qianshu in person." The old man looked down and spoke. "Trin Qianshu is not in the mansion. Tell me where Ngo Din Hai is, and I will convey the message to him." Hearing this, Bui Lang's eyebrows arched, and he smiled slyly. "That place is very complicated. I'm afraid I won't be able to explain it clearly. If something goes wrong, our Bui family will have to bear the severe consequences. How can we let him take the credit?" Bui Huyan, with an expressionless face, confirmed once again that Trin Qianshu was indeed not in the mansion. Bui Lang felt as if he had been struck by a sudden blow, his eyes wide with shock, his mouth agape, standing frozen. He had chosen to come this far, but Trin Kin Sun was not here. It seemed like heaven itself wanted to destroy him. Although Trin Qianshu had arrived at the Nguyen Lao, Le Tien Tu was still there. "I will take you to meet Le Tien Tu." When Bui Huyan said this, he opened his eyes wide in surprise. Le Tien Tu, how could another disciple from the Trung Min sect be staying with Trin Kin Sun? Bui Lang furrowed his brow, wondering if the host, Le Tien Tu, was more formidable than Trin Qianshu. When he heard that Le Tien Tu might be more formidable than Trin Qianshu, Bui Huyan, who was sitting on a chair, stomped his foot hard on the ground and rushed down. The old man, with a terrified expression and covered in sweat, covered Bui Lang's mouth with his hand and shouted loudly, "Be quiet! How dare you compare Trin Qianshu with her? Le Tien Tu is the true successor of the Zhongming sect and will be the next holy maiden of the Shengzong." The old man, with a terrified expression and covered in sweat, covered Bui Lang's mouth with his hand and shouted loudly, "Be quiet! How dare you compare Trin Qianshu with her? Le Tien Tu is the true successor of the Trung Min sect and will be the next holy maiden of the Shengzong." After hearing this, Bui Lang's eyes widened in surprise, and he responded loudly, "Ah, so the holy maiden is here, lucky me?" The scene shifts to Bui Huyan and Lang, standing in front of the gate of Pu Van Institute before entering. The old man spoke up, warning them carefully. "Later, don't lift your head, especially don't look at the wind chime in the corner of that room, or it will take your life. Bui Lang, Bui family, we have treated you fairly. Now when you meet Le Tien Tu, you should know what to do." The young man smiled slyly and replied, "I understand, sir." Although he said this out loud, in his mind, he was smiling triumphantly. This old man now knows to beg me, something he should have done a long time ago. As they entered the Pu Van Institute, Bui Huyan clasped his hands together and bowed his head in respect. Bui Huyan, of the Bui family, was paying respects to Le Tien Tu. Bui Lang stood beside him, frozen in place, his cheeks flushing red. A figure emerged from behind the door, saying something right. The old man turned his face to look back, then suddenly shouted loudly, "The fairy maiden is right there, yet you still haven't knelt down." Hearing this, Bui Lang immediately collapsed to his knees. Bui Huyen knelt on the ground with a terrified expression. "My nephew, Bui Lang, has returned from Nguyen Nguyen Lao, saying that he has discovered the whereabouts of Ngo Dinh Hai." The door opened, and what hit the viewer's eyes was a pair of plump Year of the Monkey pomelos, accompanied by the voice of Ngo Dinh Hai. A young woman emerged from the room, covering her face with a fiery aura, named Le Lip Nguyet, the true successor of the Trung Min sect. As soon as Bui Lang saw Lip Nguyet emerge, his eyes widened and his face flushed red. She was so beautiful. If he could make her his wife, it would be incredibly wonderful. She had a cold and icy expression, looking down without saying a word. Suddenly, the skull-shaped wind chime hanging in front of the house emitted waves of magical energy that vibrated intensely. As soon as the wind chime vibrated, a wave of pressure weighed heavily on the bodies of Bui Huyen and Bui Lang, causing them to be terrified. Indeed, their minds had harbored dark thoughts. Lip Nguyet hastily asked, "Where is the person now?" Bui Lang clasped his hands together and immediately replied, "Fairy Ngo Dinh Hai is dead." Hearing that, Bui Huyen stood beside him, eyes wide open, mouth wide open. What is he surprised about? She had a questioning look in her eyes, but did she find anything on him? He replied with his eyebrows furrowed. Besides some strange medicines, there was also a jade tablet. Lip Nguyet stared at Bui Lang and quickly asked another question. "Did you get the jade slip?" He quickly replied, "No, I dare not. That jade slip is too strange. I have buried it in a very mysterious place. I can take Fairy to get it," but Bui Lang gritted his teeth and secretly took the pill in his hand. This pill is Ngo Dinh Hai's life-saving card. If Fairy Lei wants to destroy the grass completely, then she will have to take the risk. Lip Nguyet looked at Bui Lang's injured arm and thought to herself that it was indeed injured by the 5 poisons. It seemed that what he said was true. After thinking about it, she quickly asked, "What do you want?" He looked bored when he saw Bui Huyen winking at him from the side. "Such a good opportunity. Why don't you quickly open your mouth and speak up for the Bui family? If you don't live for yourself, heaven and earth will destroy you. If you listen to him, then I'm no different from an idiot." Bui Lang frowned, looked up at Lip Nguyet and loudly asked Tien Tu to save his life. Lip Nguyet stood on the porch and threw a bottle of pills down for Bui Lang to take. He stared at the bottle of elixir in his hand. Drink it and refine it to neutralize the 5 poisons. Only then will it be dispelled. She with cold face. As for the Rakshasa Yan Guo, in the blink of an eye, Lip Nguyet's expression changed, her eyes shining brightly, extremely terrifying. "Wait for me to get back the jade slip. I will definitely let that trash Trin Kin Sun help you." Hearing that, Bui was bowing his head, thinking to himself. She glanced and immediately recognized the traces of the Rakshasa Yan Guo on her body. How terrifying is her cultivation level. He lowered his head, his eyes darkened, and he was sweating profusely. He thanked Fairy Li. The jade slip on the western outskirts of the mountain was divided into 3 types of order under the ghost tree. After hearing that, she turned around and her whole body burst out with surging spiritual power. The cold gaze glanced to the side and in a blink of an eye disappeared right in front of him and Bui Huyen. The cold gaze glanced to the side and in a blink of an eye disappeared right in front of him and Bui Huyen. He sat down on the ground, raised his hand to wipe his sweat, and breathed a sigh of relief that she was finally gone. She was so scary. Luckily, she didn't make things difficult for him. Otherwise, with this pill, it would be difficult to keep his life. Bui Huyen stood behind with red eyes, furious. "Bui Lang, didn't he ask you to demand benefits for the Bui family?" Suddenly, he turned pale and sweaty, gritting his teeth. At this moment, the demonic bone map appeared behind him. The evil hands sucked Bui Lang's essence again. The old man glared, pointed forward, and shouted angrily and rudely, "You dare to insult this old man!" Bui Lang turned around and looked behind him, frustrated. "I didn't say anything." "You old man, you're about to be sucked dry. You old devil, can you stop clinging to me? The whole afternoon these two people made a ruckus in Poo Van courtyard. After I neutralize the poison in my body, I will definitely speak up for Bui Lang. You wait there for me. The scene changes to Bui Lang's room. He is now lying on the bed, holding a bottle of elixir in his hand, his vital energy gradually being drained. He quickly threw 3 pills into his mouth and swallowed them. Bui Lang raised his hand to hug his chest and glanced at the strange arms that reached out from the Rakshasa Diamkot Jo to suck his vital energy. The poison in the 5 can only be neutralized by taking medicine, but the poison in the Rakshasa Diamkot Jo is afraid it won't last. Until Fairy Lay arrives, his face was bloodless and covered in sweat. Looking at the system panel, he could only rely on cultivating in the system to overcome this ordeal. The system I want to cultivate informs you that the system is capable of cultivating. Wholeheartedly serving you, please choose the cultivation method you want to cultivate. The boy with a bored expression, not wanting to talk, remembered last time it was Ngo Din Hai, then Trin Kin Sun. Who knows who else will steal the secret this time? Maybe the new method will be safer. He reached out and pressed the system panel loudly and started practicing the nameless cultivation method. System notification click on the commission feature will upgrade. Now start commissioning cultivation. After the system announced, his face fell into a state of euphoria. Fa Bui Lang sat on the bed, cultivating with his eyes closed. In his mind, he imagined the scene of him soaking in the bathtub, being served by 2 big-hearted girls. It was indeed a cultivation method that Trin Kin Sun had stolen. Indeed, he had calmed down a lot. The scene changed to the outer city of Deer Park. At this time, Lip Nguyet stood in the middle of 3 trees, reaching out to circulate spiritual power. Immediately the jade slip flew up from the ground to her. Staring at the jade slip in hand, finally got it. Suddenly, Ngotjian emitted an aura that surprised her. Immediately, a needle-like stream of air flew towards her pupils. She immediately let go of Koin Ngotjian's hand and jumped back, angrily shouting at whoever dared to cause trouble. From the jade slip, streams of aura began to gather and form a human figure in front of Lip Nguyet. A remnant spirit of an old man appeared. He was the little elder of the Zhongming sect's outer sect, Fairy Lay. Long time no see. Looking at the remnant soul in front of him, Lip Nguyet wondered and asked, "Does Mr. Tu still have some soul left here?" The old man's eyes were cold. He stared straight ahead and questioned the immortal who was already a true disciple with a boundless future. Why did she have to be so stubborn about the secret manual of the 6 desires and kill her fellow disciples? Lip Nguyet frowned, his eyes filled with anger as he said, "Anyone who stops me from becoming stronger must die." Hearing that, Latue's eyes darkened and he angrily poured spiritual power into his 2 hands and rushed forward, shouting loudly, "Everyone must die, so you go die too." Seeing the old man rushing towards Lip Nguyet, he reached out his hand and used his spiritual power to coldly snort. Not knowing his strength, he then used the soul-repelling technique to strike out a large purple snake, baring its fangs and charging forward. He looked at the snake coiled around him in horror. The remaining soul of the star was tightly squeezed by the snake. Latue gritted his teeth and was angry. "Fairy Lo, you are so cruel." Lip Nguyet frowned, his face cold like ice law. Tu was about to die, so he stopped talking too much. She immediately used the 5-finger sleeping feather technique to create a cage of spiritual power to imprison him. Latue saw this and was extremely terrified that you could practice this divine ability. His face darkened, his eyes lit up as he shouted loudly, "If I force you to die today, you won't be able to get the 6 desires secret manual." His remnant soul began to swell and swell. No one could possibly get the 6 desires secret manual, ha ha ha. Seeing that, Lip Nguyet frowned and stared straight ahead. The skull wind chime she carried with her rang out. Each rustling sound emitted an extremely strange aura. Lip Nguyet's entire body emitted surging spiritual power as she jumped into the air. Looking at Lip Nguyet rushing towards him, he opened his mouth and laughed smugly. Ha ha ha, he was going to die. As Lip Nguyet got closer and closer, his little remnant soul began to emit extremely powerful light. A loud bang shook the old man's remnant soul and exploded with a loud bang. Lip Nguyet landed on the ground, creating a cool effect. She was also affected by the explosion. Her mouth was bleeding. She stared at the jade slip she was holding in her hand. She got it. The scene changed to Fu Van Vien's monastery. At this time, Leap Nguyet had also returned, his body covered in injuries and his mouth coughing non-stop. The jade slip she was holding in her hand had cracks appearing. Seeing that, Leap Nguyet's eyebrows furrowed, thinking to himself that he had to quickly fix it and return to Trong Min Tong to find someone to fix the Ngoch Jian. In another development in Bui Lang's room, he was sitting and practicing his cultivation. His face was as high as if he was sucking something, while in his mind was the scene of being surrounded by 3 big, round girls practicing this method of soul-destroying medicine. Damn it. Suddenly, the system announced that the unnamed exercise was a dual cultivation exercise, and that a Taoist priest must accompany it in order to continue practicing. The system board displayed that the server was missing a companion. The system gave away a companion for free. Seeing the system notification, Bui Lang Vang was bored and had dead fish eyes. Looking at the system board to get to work, just finished speaking, the boy was quickly run outside by the system control. If you don't send me to death, you won't stop, right? He's controlled by the system. He ran like Sonic and lifted the skirt of a young lady on the street. This can be my companion. If it's not my sister, then it's my uncle's brother's woman. After a while, Bui Lang was controlled by the system to run to the front door of Pu Van Vien. Why did he come here? The boy's face was as green as a frog's ass. His smile was silly. His arms were shaking. He pointed at the system. We came to the wrong place, right? Fairy Lee must still be in the suburbs right now. Bui Lang was controlled by the system and opened the door wide. His eyes went dark. The system said, we can't go in. We probably can't go out. You have to think carefully. The boy gradually entered the Pu Van courtyard and was crushed together. The boy walked and cried, 2 lines of tears running down his face. Leap Nguyet was meditating in her room when she saw Bui Lang's shadow on the door. Seeing that, she frowned and looked straight at the door, and he almost forgot. She closed her eyes and said loudly, I will help you in a bit. Leap Nguyet had just finished speaking when Bui Lang kicked the door open and entered from outside. The door was broken into pieces by the boy's kick. The boy's eyes darkened and his expressionless face entered. Seeing that, Leap Nguyet widened her eyes in surprise. What kind of situation is this? Bui Lang was controlled by the system to pose with a smile on his face. Hello, baby? But inside his mind, he was crying. Leap Nguyet's bullet-shaped eyes angrily shouted, Insolent! Get lost! She reached out her hand and quickly rushed forward to grab Bui Lang's neck. 2 lines of tears rolled down his cheeks. The arm was controlled by the system and the pill flew forward. The person who heard me explain was done for. She took action. We were done for. With a loud bang, the pill flew towards Leap Nguyet and immediately exploded, creating a cloud of green smoke. She fell flat on the floor, frowning and sweating profusely. Why was Ngo Din Hai's trump card, soul-shaking and evil-dispelling, in his hands? Leap Nguyet's eyelids began to feel heavy and hateful. The old wound that had not yet healed before her eyes was no longer certain. Then she fell to the floor and passed out. Seeing that, Bui Lang's eyes widened in surprise. Did he fall like that? The boy stood there, frowning, his eyes filled with passion. Could it be that the system was invincible, or that while looking for the jade slip, she was injured? The boy was sweating profusely as he picked up Leap Nguyet and put her on the bed. But the system said, even though you did it, this is a girl, and it's best we don't touch her. Bui Lang was controlled by the system to put his hand towards the masked face of Leap Nguyet and asked, System, what are you going to do? Leap Nguyet's veil was pulled down to reveal an extremely beautiful face. At this moment, in Bui Lang's mind, 2 extremes were fighting each other. You should calm down a bit. You are a monster. You can touch anything at will. Why die under the peony flowers and be a ghost and still be romantic? The system notification of the companion gift has ended. Now continue practicing. Is it true? Bui Lang at this moment was like a wild animal, his eyes shining brightly, straining to tear his clothes to reveal his 6-pack muscles. In his mind, he was currently struggling psychologically. If you don't do it, are you still a man? His eyes darkened and tears streamed down his face. His identity as a dog-like man cannot be preserved. He used both hands to tear Leap Nguyet's clothes. I don't know what he saw, but his cheeks were red and tomato sauce was coming out of his nose. His face was red as a gak fruit. I didn't want to die either. But what man could sit still? He couldn't control his nightingale anymore and jumped on the bed with Leap Nguyet. Builang sat on the bed, busily doing something with Leap Nguyet, but the author covered it up. The skull wind chime hanging outside emitted streams of magic that continuously rang. Leap Nguyet lay unconscious on the bed, her mouth groaning unconsciously. Builang duel cultivated with Leap Nguyet. His body emitted streams of spiritual energy. The wounds on his body gradually recovered. The wounds from the previous battle with Ngo Hai were completely healed. Even the third level of chi refining that had just broken through was developing rapidly. He stuffed the pestle into Leap Nguyet's mortar. His body emitted spiritual energy, feeling like it was about to break. Although she was in a coma, her mouth was still moaning in ecstasy. Was sipping. Then suddenly he stopped sweating profusely, his face full of fear, just not knowing how she would torture me after she woke up. The scene changed to Bui Jia Palace. At this time, Trin Kin Son had also returned. He quickly asked Bui Huyen, who was standing behind, if he had found Ngo Hai. The old man clasped his hands together. His mouth smiled brightly as a flower as he replied to Master Trin. According to what Builang, the disciple of the palace, investigated, Ngo Hai was dead. Kinsun glanced back and quickly asked, "What happened to him? Where are his things?" He immediately replied, "Fairy Li personally went to get it. If senior sister personally went to get it, then this matter can be considered abandoned." Bui Huyen was sweating profusely, his mouth smiling wickedly. "I'm so sorry, Master. 50 pills of my bone-hardening pills. I'll go back to Bitch Hongvan and finish solving it. You can come and get it." The old man put his hands to the side and couldn't stop laughing, bowing to the immortal master. Kinsun frowned, his eyes looking forward, his lips curled into a smug smile. In front of his senior sister he had obtained the secret manual. Perhaps it was all thanks to me. He still thought it was really good. He returned to his Buihong van and was met with a messy scene. The vase of woven fabric in the drawer has also faded, leaving only the belt. Seeing that, his eyes darkened and his face was full of angry veins. Who is so bold as to dare to steal Trin Kinsun's things? He glanced at the La Sat Diem Cot Du behind him and asked, "When I wasn't here, who broke in here?" From the skeleton painting, a woman's soul flew out. This remnant soul leaned close to Kinsun's ear and said to Builang. Hearing that, he looked at Ngo Hai with a cold gaze and wondered where he was at Pu Van Vien. In another development at Pu Van Vien, Builang, with extremely skillful movements, breathed into Leap Nguyet's neck. She lay on the bed, unconscious. An extremely strange source of energy was gradually entering her body. The wound in the body seems to be healing quickly. It's so warm and comfortable. What is it that makes people want to stop but can't stop like this? She slowly opened her eyes and then widened her eyes when she saw Builang borrowing her oven to bake potatoes. Seeing her wake up, he grabbed the system board and smashed it on the ground repeatedly. "Stupid system, hurry up and tell me to stop. Look at the situation. Is it practice time now?" Leap Nguyet frowned, eyes angry, raised her hand, used her spiritual power, and shouted loudly, "Get lost!" Is it too late for her to react now? This slap will kill me. He immediately reached out and grabbed Leap Nguyet's arm. He controlled her and turned her over to change positions. He thought to himself, this is the first time in so many years that I've seen myself like this, the brave and martial god. Builang angrily yelled at the system, "Damn it, you still dare to speed up!" Leap Nguyet lay on the bed with her eyes wide open, surprised that she felt that this was the power of that warmth. The chains in my body are gradually being broken. She lay on the bed enjoying Builang's thrusts until 2V was also increasing fiercely. Leap felt like it could be even more. Leap Nguyet's face turned red with pleasure. Like sucking a damn thing, her state from then until now. At this moment, someone's foot stepped outside. Inside the room, Builang was still happily roasting his potatoes. Just as my whole body was shaking, spiritual energy was rising. This is the feeling that I have entered the 4th level of chi refining. His face was covered with sweat as he looked at Leap Nguyet lying on the bed. She is like that. Obviously she wants to kill me. Why hasn't she done it yet? Leap Nguyet's face was red as a gak fruit. Like being constantly hit from behind, could it be that his cultivation increased like this? Suddenly her eyes widened, her body emitted spiritual energy, and she groaned. Builang's eyes were filled with fear and sweat as he looked at Lip Nguyet's spiritual energy rising from her body. It seemed to be getting heavier, but he couldn't let the system. Suddenly a strange feeling came over both of them. Builang's face turned red and he spat out a lot of saliva. Suddenly, a pillar of light shone down from the sky, accompanied by 4 words color, which means no system notification. The first person to ascend was Wu Yu. If you are satisfied, please rate 5 stars. Builang's face was red. Fa fell forward. Finally, it was over. He and Lip Nguyet lay on the bed, breathing heavily and tiredly. He opened his eyes and looked forward. What caught his eyes at this moment was Lip Nguyet's sharp eyes glaring at him. He was scared and quickly grabbed his clothes, wearing only shorts, crossed his legs, and ran out. I know, get lost. Kin-sun stood outside, frowning and staring inside, shouting loudly, "Who broke into Pu Van Vien?" Hearing Kin-sun's voice, he immediately hid in a corner, his face filled with fear. Trin Kin-sun, why are you here? He stood outside, looking into the room. Why is the senior sister's room like that? Could it be that guy named Tu Builang? Thinking of this, Kin-sun's eyes turned red like an evil god, channeling his spiritual power into his arm. Very good, you stole my pancreas bone pill. If you even dare to touch my senior sister's head, I will have to deal with you on behalf of the Bui family. Builang frowned and gritted his teeth. He looked outside, afraid that it was too late. Suddenly the skull wind chime hanging in front of the room rang. Kin-sun's face was as green as a frog's butt, sweating profusely and spitting blood. Is the senior sister in there? Then he knelt down. Bang your head on the ground. He opened his eyes wide in fear, blood flowing from his forehead down his face. Senior sister, forgive me for being rude. Lip Nguyet stood in the room with dark eyes and shouted, Quail, go away quickly. Kin-sun frowned. His eyes were pensive, sweating profusely. Could it be that Builang was not in Fu Van Vien? But what was this door like? He ran out on all fours. Yes, junior brother, get lost now. Builang turned his face away, looking at Lip Nguyet with dead fish eyes in fear. Okay, now it's my turn. The boy raised his hand to scratch his face and forced a smile, apologizing for what I just did. She ignored Builang's words and walked past him, leaving him stunned. He watched Lip Nguyet's back as she walked behind the curtain, worried that she had left. Perhaps she had gone to get some magic weapon to punish him. After the storm on the bed earlier, she poured buckets of water on herself to clean herself. Builang stood outside, putting on his clothes, smiling smugly. Luckily, he had prepared his clothes. She was taking a shower, so he quickly left invisible. The system board displays the message, if you are satisfied, please rate 5 stars. The boy frowned angrily, his face full of veins, using his friendly finger to rate the system 1 star. If I can uninstall you, I'll let you go in a minute. If every time it's not practice, next time you want to do something that will piss me off. You still want to rate me well? What the hell do you mean? System notification. Very sorry, the system function cannot give the host a good cultivation experience. The system will give away a free Duong Nguyen Dan pill as compensation. Seeing the system notification. Then Builang Huada stood still, eyes darkened, give away for free. Why again? He was controlled by the system to walk back to the bed where they had sex just now, rummaging through Lip Nguyet's torn clothes. You don't want me to live anymore, do you? After a while of searching, he found a bag and took out a pill. The gift of the Yang Yuan pill was complete. With just 1 click of cultivation, you can fulfill your dream of ascension without worrying. After the system announced, Builang could also control his body. His mouth smiled. Now it was no longer under control, so he had to quickly put it back in its original place. Lip Nguyet finished bathing, pushed the curtain aside, and stepped out. Just stepped out and saw Builang rummaging through the bag on his head. He was wearing his bra. Lip Nguyet's expression was cold and murderous. What are you doing? He turned his head and raised his hand to scratch his mouth, grinning. You took a shower so quickly. What's wrong? I can't explain anymore. She frowned, her eyes cold, but said nothing. Builang sat down on the ground in fear. Staring at Lip Nguyet's arm that was emitting a powerful spiritual power, the system wondered if he could meet that person again in the next life. Lip Nguyet's eyes darkened, her arm emitted surging spiritual power and raised up. Boom! A loud explosion like an atomic bomb. A column of smoke rose like a giant mushroom, accompanied by Bui Lang's shout, "I will definitely give you 10,000 one-star reviews." The scene changed to in front of Bui Hongvan's door. Someone's voice said, "Is Master Trin there?" Inside the room, Kin Sun sat on a chair, staring at the person opposite him. Bui Hong Nian. "What do you want here?" Hong Nian clasped his hands together and replied, "Ngo Din Hai had died. My father sent me here to ask about the pancreas and bones." While these two people were talking, they heard an explosion in the distance. Hong Lian and Kin Sun looked outside and saw a giant mushroom rising up. Bui Lang covered his face with his hands, eyes closed, face covered in sweat. The last blow was intentionally missed by Li Pinguyet. She looked at him and coldly snorted. He opened his eyes and stared at Li Pinguyet, extremely surprised that she didn't kill him, but intentionally attacked him. Why? At this moment, Kin Sun and Hong Nian ran over, panting. What happened? Seeing the two of them running over, Bui Lang's eyes widened. Her mouths were wide open. Tears streamed down her face. Hong Nian's eyes widened in surprise when he saw Bui Lang. "Why are you here hearing that?" He raised his hand to scratch his head. His eyes were absent-minded, and he smiled foolishly. Kin Sun's gray forehead broke into a sinister smile. "It turns out you are Bui Lang." He stood in front of Li Pinguyet and looked to the side at his senior sister. "This person has many schemes. Senior sister must be careful." She immediately waved her hand forward. "Slap Kin Sun and give him a new profile picture." Bui Lang and Hong Nian were sweating profusely as they looked at him lying on the ground. Why was the injured person Trin Kin Sun? What was going on? Li Pinguyet took out a mini-boat and brought it forward. In the blink of an eye, the mini-boat turned into an African boat. Bui Lang felt like a new boy in the city when he saw Fi Chao standing in front of him. His eyes lit up in surprise and he exclaimed, "Wow!" She entered Africa and looked at the people who gave the order to go home. Seeing that the other three had entered Africa, Bui Lang breathed a sigh of relief and laughed triumphantly. They were finally willing to leave. Thank goodness. Suddenly he glanced back. Face covered in sweat, depressed. "Why haven't you left yet?" Standing on top of Fi Chao Kin Sun, he glanced at Li Pinguyet, who was looking down below. Could it be that the senior sister was planning to... He looked at Bui Lang, who was standing below, intending to run away, and shouted loudly, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and get up here." Hearing that, he was definitely discouraged, biting his lips and sweating profusely. He put the potatoes in the oven and they were already baked, but he still wanted to run away. Scene changed to next scene. The boy is sitting huddled in a corner in Africa with a constipated face contemplating life. "Why did you bring me here? This time we really got on a pirate ship." At this time, two young ladies were standing inside, observing Bui Lang sitting in a corner, whispering to each other. "Sister, tell me, what is so special about that young man that the master had to personally step in to break the ban of the flame bone, La Sat Du? How can we guess the deep female owner? But there is a good show to watch." At this moment, Kin Sun's eyes were cold, his hands clenched tightly, and Hong Nian stood in front of Bui Lang. He had a huge guava on his cheek and frowned angrily. "Who gave you the guts to steal my bone pill?" The boy put his hand to his mouth and smiled wickedly. "I said I don't want it either. Do you believe me?" He put his hand to his mouth and smiled wickedly. "I said I don't want to. Do you believe me?" Suddenly he glanced down in surprise when he saw that there was no trace of the La Sat Diem bone map on Bui Lang's body. He stood there, eyes wide open, frowning, thinking to himself, "Could it be that your senior sister? It seems like you really value this kid. I have to be careful." He withdrew his hand and snorted coldly in disdain, leaving Bui Lang dumbfounded. He frowned and stared straight ahead. It seemed that as long as Fairy Lei did not touch him, Trin Kin Sun would not dare to act rashly. Hong Nian stood beside him with his eyebrows curved and his eyes filled with love. Why did he stop and see how much endurance this brat had? Suddenly he widened his eyes and stared at Bui Lang with his mouth wide open in surprise. "You have reached the 4th level of qi refining. Why were you still at the 2nd level of qi refining a month ago?" He raised his hand and scratched his head, answering, "Yes." Kin Sun glanced back with cold eyes, making Builang's eyes widen in fear. The fourth level of chi refining was also valued by the senior sister. It was not true that one time of cultivating the tangerine bone severing, one had to use at most one bone tempering pill. Could it be that he cultivated 10 times in one day? Is this the reason why senior sister values him? If I can test this kid to see how strong he is, Kin Sun thought, as he reached out and took out a knife. Builang opened his mouth wide and broke out in a cold sweat when he saw the sword that Kin Sun was holding in his hand was emitting strange ghost remnants. What was he holding the sword for? Did he want to kill me? Seeing the sword, Hong Nian's eyes widened in surprise and astonishment. What is this sword? Kin Sun held the sword in his hand and spoke. The last time he inquired about Ngo Din He's news, he had a reward. The last time it was 5 bone-hardening pills, but it was difficult for the two of you to divide them. To be fair, I will give each of you a chance. He used 2 fingers to clamp the tip of the knife and brought it forward. His expression was unusually calm. Whoever could take the Yinsheng Dao from my hand would be that person. Hong Nian stepped forward, using both hands to tightly grasp the handle of the sword, smiling smugly. Senior brother had already spoken, so junior brother was more respectful than the others, obeying orders. Builang saw that and breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he wasn't cut. He glanced to the side, then saw Hong Nian trying to pull out the knife, but the real milk force impacted his body, causing him to scream in pain, the remnants of the demon soul from within the knife blade. The remaining demonic souls flew out from the blade, then rushed forward and hit Hong Nian hard, causing him to drop his knife and fall down. Behind Kin Sun saw that and smiled smugly enough. Your strength is not enough. You've laughed smugly enough. Your strength is not enough. He pointed the hilt of the sword that was emitting an intention towards Builang and said, It's your turn now. Seeing that, he smiled wickedly and raised his hand to refuse. Just now, you hated me to the bone. What did you do? I'm so good. I won't fall for your trap. Thank you, Master Trin. It's just that my strength right now is really not good enough. Let's go. Hearing that, Kin Sun's forehead turned gray, and his eyes were cold and murderous. It seemed that he was not worthy of my Yem Sin Dao. So, will you withdraw this Dao or not? At Builang's feet, streams of spiritual energy appeared. The boy and Kin Sun looked at the rising spiritual energy and were extremely surprised. From the spiritual energy appeared 2 figures. Then these 2 people appeared with extremely beautiful faces, accompanied by butterflies flying around. Kin Sun looked at these 2 ladies and asked in a curious manner, Miss Lu came here herself. Did your senior sister give you any instructions? Vu Liu looked straight ahead and said that the owner was currently adjusting his breathing. He invited everyone to quickly finish this. Don't affect the owner. She suddenly exclaimed when she saw the Than Dao of Kin Sun, the sword of the evil spirit. She was waiting to see who could pull it out and whose turn it was. Then she reported to Miss Lu that it was now Mr. Builang's turn. She walked over and used 1 finger to stroke Builang's chin like a dog. You look pretty good up close. Tuan Tu heard that, and his eyes widened. He opened his mouth in surprise and whispered, Does she know me? Liu showed off her sharp nails, making an extremely scary face that scared Builang to the point of giving him goosebumps. Okay, hurry up and finish this, or else it will affect the master. Be careful or I will peel you off. Kin Sun smiled contemptuously, used 2 fingers to tightly clamp the sword that was emitting strange ghost remnants, and brought it forward. Builang's face was covered in sweat. He looked to the side in horror. It seemed that he could only do this. He hoped that the people of this sect would not bother him again. He immediately put both hands on the hilt of the knife, then tighten the butt muscles, increase the thigh pressure, clench your teeth together, and try to pull the sword that is emitting the remnants of the evil spirit. Kin Sun closed his eyes and smiled lightly, refining his chi at the 4th level. How could he pull out this sword? He opened his eyes wide in surprise. Builang closed his eyes and nose, sweating profusely, gritting his teeth and trying his best to pull the sword. Kin Sun's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He frowned, looking at the tip of the knife that was showing signs of moving. At this time, everyone stood focused and watched Builang pull Kin Sun's sword. Kin Sun's eyes widened, and Tran Kin broke out in a cold sweat. Staring at Bui Lang, who was trying his best to pull his sword, this kid was truly abnormal. No wonder his senior sister valued him so much. If he really pulled it out, where would he put his face? He used his cold eyes to use his undeveloped 5th-level strength to clamp the tip of the knife with 2 fingers. Bui Lang gritted his teeth, sweat continuously flowing down. He tried his best to pull the sword but couldn't take it anymore. He let go of the knife handle. Kneeling down, out of breath, sweating profusely. Master Trin's cultivation method is profound. I am impressed. Kin Sun closed his eyes and smiled smugly. Then the person standing nearby spoke up. Drill Huyen Kot Lang. Amchow already has. Bui Hong Nian is trash. Cannot have a second person. The lamp shaft in the old owner's room, then take it off yours to make a new one. Bui Lang heard that and was startled as if a thunderclap had struck him. What kind of weird logic is this, master? You haven't even touched me yet, and your 2 female monsters want my life. He frowned and glanced to the side. If it couldn't be saved, then he would risk his life. Liu stepped forward and hugged Chaogay, raising a finger and saying, Sister Chaogay, Bui Gongzi has always been in a deserted place like Tan Lok Tuyen, so how can he compare to a disciple of Tan Tong? In my opinion, it's better to let Trin Kin Sun be a little more humble. Just use a part of his power to try again. She acted cutely with Kyung-gae, but Sister Kyung-gae closed her eyes and replied, Then it's up to you. Bui Lang clasped his hands together and said, Thank you, Miss Liu. Her face was as bright as a flower, and she smiled and replied, No need. In a flash, her expression changed. Her eyes widened in a very bewitching way. You have to try your best, young master boy, or I will turn you into a lampshade. Kin Sun frowned. His gray eyes stared at the saber in his hand. If he really used even a fraction of his power, the saber would definitely be pulled out by that brat. His eyes darkened, and he was sweating profusely. Could it be that was senior sister Kyung-gae's intention? Vu Lu stood beside him, watching attentively. Then he used 2 fingers to clamp the blade and brought it forward, inviting Mr. Bui. Bui Lang's eyes widened in a silly smile when he saw Kin Sun's face as black as the bottom of a pot, biting his lips tightly, eyes filled with tears. Was he crying? Never mind. Absolutely cannot be made into a lampshade. He put both hands on the hilt of the knife. Eyes of extreme determination. Use all your strength to open your mouth and scream loudly. In the blink of an eye, he had pulled the Yen Sin Dao from Kin Sun's hand. Bui Lang's eyebrows curved. His eyes were pensive. Could a part of his power be so easily withdrawn? After Bui Lang took away the Kin Sun Than Dao, tears and snot all over his face. This knife is the weapon I always used when I was in the outer sect. Now it's in your hands. I hope you will use it well and not ruin its reputation. Seeing that, he broke out in a cold sweat. He was really crying. Bui Lang clasped his hands together and bowed his head to thank the immortal master. I humbly promise not to disappoint the immortal master's expectations. Liu's mouth smiled and clapped his hands together. He pulled it out. Young Master Bui is really a Dung Thun Vu type. He stood at the side with an expressionless face and said, Okay, the test is over. Everyone, go to the boat and rest. The case of Liu flying next to Bui Lang happily said, Young Master Bui, I will take you to May's room, but there is the case of Miss Liu. Liu led the boy into the boat. In the rooms that make creepy sounds. Bui Lang looked around in fear. This place was too weird. Suddenly behind him, through the crack of the door, appeared a pair of bloodshot eyes staring at him. He sat down on the ground, scared out of his wits, his skin crawling, and he screamed loudly when he saw the strange streams of energy heading towards him. Vu Liu widened his eyes and gave the order to retreat. Immediately, these streams of demonic energy flew away. Bui Lang stood up, clasped his hands together, breathed a sigh of relief, thanked Miss Liu, and smiled as if nothing had happened. She led Bui Lang into a room. Young Master Bui, this is your room. That's right, Mr. Bui Lang. Can I ask you a question? He immediately replied, Miss, just ask. She immediately stepped forward, slapped Bui Lang, leaving him no time to react, and he gaped in shock. Vu Liu's act of reaching out to stroke Bui Lang's cheek made his face turn bright red. Young Master Bui's forehead was ashen, and she wondered why there was the scent of her master on him. Hearing that, Bui Lang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He clenched his teeth and sweated profusely, thinking to himself, Could it be that she guessed that he and Fairy Lay had done those things?